My sweet Annabelle, it is with a heavy heart that I must inform you that the high spirits of yesterday's correspondence have been crushed. The battle today was brutal and painful. I now have 8 more days to endure, and I fear I lack the fortitude to do so. Keep me in your thoughts, Annabelle. P.S. Did you give the cat his meds? Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I'm taking a look at the 1994 classic Puppet Master 5. Now, I was afraid this would happen. The first movie was kind of, Second movie was kind of, Third, and fourth, This one, it was my absolute least favorite in the series so far. And it's an interesting thing because it picks up the same exact story and characters as Puppet Master 4, which I really, really liked. It basically takes place directly after those events. And this had many mistakes, but I think it made the biggest cinematic mistake that is possible. And I will go over that in just a little bit. But for right now, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. Now, the first category, as always, is plot. And the plot on this one, it like I said, it picked up where the last one left off. And somehow we're at a police station where the main character is being kept. And I guess that makes sense. If bodies were found, police have to get involved, and police are going to start questioning, and they're not going to believe that, we little puppet demons were running around. So, obviously somebody's got to be held accountable, and, who else is there at this point? So, yeah, they have the main character in custody, and, lack of evidence and so forth. The story basically just kind of goes on from there. But here's the problem with it, and this is probably going to be a little bit of a spoiler, but honestly, I don't think it's really that... I think it's necessary for me to say it, that the entirety of the movie is something that could have been compressed down to 1, maybe 2 scenes. Not just acts, but scenes. And ultimately, it led us right back where we left off in Puppet Master 4. So, considering that it drew things out for so much and had so little activity, and ultimately brought us back to the same place we were at before we even watched this movie, the biggest word I can describe Puppet Master 5 is pointless. It was absolutely pointless. It developed nothing with the characters, developed nothing with the puppets, it developed nothing with the storyline. And I was just really wondering why in the heck I was watching it. I would say about 2/3 of the way through the movie, I paused it just to look at the timestamp and to reflect on what I had been watching. And it really dawned on me that pretty much the entirety of what I had been watching was him being released from the police station, him going back to the hotel, and him finding the puppets. They've been scattered around the hotel and him finding them. That's it. At the 2/3 mark, that is it. And it doesn't get a whole lot better after that. It's just, and sorry, I know this is spoilery, but honestly, I think this is almost like a public service that I'm doing here. I'm going to be discussing a lot more individual scenes and a lot more specifics in the you know what, I'm going to do something here that I've been considering doing for a little while, and I'm not going to have a deep dive discussion on this one, and here's why. I feel like if there's nothing to really contribute to a deep dive discussion, if there's not spoilery elements or even thematic elements that need further investigation and discussion and so forth, then I feel like I'm kind of just spinning my wheels and ultimately coming up with vocal filler. And that's something I really don't want to do. I want every video on here to have some meat to it. So if it doesn't deserve it, it's not going to get it. If it's not tackling some thematic issues, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that a bad movie is not going to get a deep dive review. Bad movies certainly could. It's more if there's nothing specific in the movie that I feel like really warrants discussion, and if it's not tackling any thematic issues as far as plot structure, or how I might have done things differently, or if the character tropes, stuff outside of the movie itself, but things that it may have addressed or brought up that I feel is worthy of discussion. If it doesn't have any of that, I'm not going to bother. It really feels like a waste of your time. And that's going to be the case on this one. So, all the spoilery elements, I guess, is kind of coming out to the light here. But it's not terrible spoilers, because it's not really it's not a movie worthy of not being spoiled. I'm simply describing the plot, and the plot ultimately just winds up in a place that doesn't matter, because as it ends, and I'm not going to go over the climactic ending or anything like that, but the very ending, it basically has the main character being given the mantle of puppet master, and please take care of them. They are in your charge, and so forth. But that's exactly where 4 left off. So where are we now? We're nowhere. Okay, so scoring. Sorry, I kind of got off the rails there. But scoring, I gave a 5 out of 25 for the plot. Technically, what was there was fairly coherent. It was followable. And, it did move at a snail's pace, but it did move. It ultimately led us somewhere. So 5 out of 25. I mean, it's pretty much at that point a congratulations, you put pen to paper kind of thing. The intent, I also gave a 5 out of 25. It did have puppet kills. But other than that, it wasn't scary. It wasn't fun. It wasn't interesting. And like I said earlier, it didn't explore anything new. It didn't even really explore a whole lot of the old. It didn't do a whole lot. It was just kind of an hour and a half of wasted celluloid. The acting, I gave an 8 out of 25. It was worse than the last movie, but the characters that did make it from the 4 to 5, I thought did about the same job. And I'm not going to say they did a great job. The acting that did hold up pretty well in 4 did translate over to 5. But the new characters that were brought in were pretty bad. So 8 out of 25 there. And the technical, I kind of dipped down from where I had been doing previously. I gave it a 5 out of 25. The puppeteering was good. The stop motion was good. But there was absolutely nothing new brought to the table. And overall, everything else about the movie kind of really did suffer a bit. The camera work wasn't nearly as interesting. The setting wasn't nearly as interesting. As we were traveling around the house, the lack of any kind of fluidity to it really was kind of apparent. And, ultimately, when you have such timing missteps and you ruin the beat of the movie by dragging it so long, I feel like that's a technical error as well. That's an editing thing that might have been able to be at least fixed up somehow. So 5 out of 25 for the technical. And that gives us a total score of 23 out of 100. Not great. Definitely not my favorite of the series, certainly. I really hope it picks up. I really hope that, when 4 ended, I was saying, well, I really want this storyline to continue. And now that it has, I'm like, well, okay, I kind of want it to end now. This is a point that I knew I would get at with the Puppet Master series, and it's a point that I get at with most franchises. Is once we get to 4, 5, 6 or so, it starts to become an endurance trial, and there's a sense of, you're not going to get a quality movie out of going further into a franchise like this. It's so rare. And I'm struggling. I can't even think of any specific instances until we start to get to reboots and rehashes. But once we're just continuing on and adding numbers to the title, it's really tough to get a good movie out of here. But a lot of them still at least keep the spirit and keep the level of fun going. And I think one of the worst things that a franchise can do is stop that. And I think that this movie is a misstep, and it's heading towards the wrong direction as far as keeping a fun franchise going. I'm hoping it rights the ship, and we shall see. But the biggest sin that this committed is the biggest sin you can do in all of cinema. You can have a bad movie, you can have a slow movie, but the only thing that you cannot ever, ever, ever have is a boring movie. And this was. So that's my thoughts on it. Here's looking towards tomorrow. We'll see how that turns out. And other than that, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.